Like, I could die by the time I'm 45. Do not care.
I was just in a very, very dark place, and that's what made me realise, there was a point in my life where I wanted to take my life.
And then suddenly faced with this reality that actually they were going to be 450 miles away, and a 10-hour car journey turned out to be more like 11 or 12. It was horrible.
I just don't care about a lot of things. That is the most layman way I can put it, is that I just don't care about a lot of things.
Inspiration Nation, hello, Lee Kemp here for another week on the podcast, as always with my very good friends Jose Noya and Ryan Boniface. How are we this week, guys?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you, Lee.
Yeah, great, Lee. Thank you very much.
Glad to hear it. Sorry, I cut you off, Chair. There, Joe. Carry on.
No, I was just trying to say, I'm trying not to leave any gaps. At last time you get sounding like some foreign correspondent. So there you go.
I was watching you there.
Foreign correspondent. I did say that, didn't I? I did do that.
Yes, you did.
I did the video part, and that's what you said.
So thank you everyone for watching us on YouTube. Join us live on Instagram, Jose Noya, InspirationNation. Just search for him every Tuesday at 8:30. And of course, listening to the audio podcast across all platforms. We really appreciate it. Follow us on social media at listen2in, listen2in, and just search for Joe, Jose Noya, InspirationNation, and you will get a deluge of choices of where you want to get your dose of Joe every day. So on our round robin of conversations, Joe, we are back to your good self. So what are we talking about this week?
Well, that's an interesting question, because you know what we're talking about this week.
Every time we do this, Joe, people listening don't know this. And I can't say we've already talked about it, so let's just go into it. So let's try that again.
Okay.
So, Joe, we're on our wheel of conversation. We're back to Jose Noya. What are we talking about this week, Joe?
So this week, Lee, we're talking
There we go. It's not hard.
Well, actually, it's about the hardest moments in your life. So it's...
Look at that. Perfectly set up.
Great segue, as you would put, Lee. So I think it's time that, I've talked about the hardest moment in my life, which we went back to episode 1 of the podcast. In fact, I've not listened to it since we recorded it, which is really strange.
Have you never listened to it?
I don't think I've ever recorded it, listened to it back. I might have done when we first did it, but from now, since we've done, I've not listened to it anyway. So people would sort of know my story a little bit around that, and the reasons why I do this and helping people. And I think it's time, since we're now taking a round robin around what we're sharing content. We're taking turns, and I think the nation needs to know more about Lee and Ryan, and about your hardest moments in your life to date, and how you got through it, and how people can inspire their way through that, and what you did so they can learn to do those difficult things. And everyone knows about my depression, everything like that. So if you go back to, I'm going to do a lean. If you go back to episode 1 of the podcast, you can go and listen to that. And I've talked about it quite a lot throughout the podcast. So this is where I'm going to throw it over to Lee or Ryan to reflect, as Ryan put it last week, and ask you to reflect on your hardest moment in your life, and what changed, how you got through it, what changed, what have you changed now, how do you cope, and does it pop up anymore, and how do you go strategies? Start
us off with here, Joe, because we are kind of 2.5 years since that first episode. Again, people who haven't heard it, new listeners, maybe I encourage you to go back, give it a listen. It's what kind of kicked off where we are today. Give us, in 3 minutes, Joe, give a very quick summary of what that episode is about and what you went through, and then we'll move into our stories.
Okay, so for me, it was the depression. I was just really difficult, really hard on myself. Didn't get any value. Didn't think my life had any meaning. So I just kept go down into depression in terms of talking to myself. We talked about self-talk, and I thought I was no good. I'd go out of the room, and I talked about going into the bathroom myself and just tell myself I'm no good, and that would resonate in terms of what I did. And also there'd be times I wouldn't want to go to work, and I want to drive past work. I didn't appreciate everything I had. I was just in a very, very dark place, and that's what made me realize there was a point in my life where I wanted to take my life, and luckily my wife picked it up in my work. You know, I talked to my work about it. I got help, went to the doctor, had my counselling, and and then I got into coaching, and that really was the start of this whole journey. This is where this whole thing was born, and now my purpose is, to use that to inspire us to say there is a way through. And my way was, through having that counselling, that first, getting that base, and having that coaching piece through. So for me, it is just really around the coping strategies and progression, and that you do matter. And for me, I do think I've got purpose in terms of helping other people, and that's where I found it. And it's obviously, later on down the line through those years of suffering, it's now inspiration. That's my top value, and this is why, this is why we're doing this. This is why we called it Inspiration Nation, because of, I want to feel inspired. And this is why I think I want to get you guys here now talking about your story, because I think, everyone's got a story, and I'd like the listeners to hear your story. And there may be ones that I don't really know about, which is why, I'm being like a listener really, and what I might hear come out, and that's going to inspire me. So yeah, that's in about, I don't know if that's 3 minutes, but it was quite long.
That was good, Joe. That was quite concise. Well done. And just a very quick cheap plug that obviously this is what started you on your journey to coaching. That is now what you do. People listening, head over inspirationnation.org.uk. The front page tells you all about Joe's coaching service. It is well worth a look. Even if you don't want to take it up, it's just worth a look. That's all we ask that you do and support what we're doing here. So I'll go first if we want. About, and this is quite recent, about 5 months ago, I decided to buy a journal. And every week I get badgered to write stuff in this journal. And it's becoming more and more difficult. That's not it, really. Right. So I saw the inquisitive look on Joe's face there for a second. In my head, this might be quite short. So feel free to jump in with questions and stuff around this. So my hardest thing, and I want to talk about what it is, but also my approach to it and how I coped with it, is going back to work at the age here now, 9 years. Me and my other half at the time separated. We had 2 young children, twins, 2 years old at the time. Well, probably about 1.5 at the time, maybe 2. And I was living at the time, I moved back in with my parents, and I was living on the southeast of South Coasts in Eastbourne, the Sunshine Coast. For those who don't know the UK, or just their way around the UK, they're in it. It is right on the South Coast. And my ex, I was going to say as she still is, decided that what was best for her, because she was originally from Scotland and that's where all her family were, that she was going to move back up to Scotland and obviously take the kids with her. I was living 40 minutes from where they were living at the time. I was working 2 minutes from where they were at the time. Was going around and seeing the kids, almost, it's kind of every other day, I think, in my hazy memory, something like that. And then suddenly faced with this reality that actually they were going to be 450 miles away. And, a 10-hour car journey turned out to be more like 11 or 12. It was horrible. Or a plane ride, a fair bit of logistics. That means I'm not going to be seeing them every other day, or even every week, or even every month in reality, which was quite a difficult situation. I would say, where you asked the question a while ago, Joe, and you don't normally, but you gave us a heads up on this one, and you said what it was going to be about. And I was thinking, what would that be? And that's probably the hardest one of anything, I think.
Yeah. Go on, carry on.
It's now been, and I'll talk about the middle bit, but it's now been 9 years. They've been living up there for that whole time. I like to think, have a really good relationship with the kids, got into a routine where I, save for COVID, because COVID made it really difficult. So pre-COVID, I'd see them on average every 6 weeks, either by me traveling up there and doing a long weekend, or them interspersing it with coming down to where I am for longer periods of time, like a 2-week gap. And it wasn't as pure as every 6 weeks, but it's about as average as that. Like there's a February trip, an April trip, them down in the summer for a long bit. I'd go in October. We do something about Christmas. It kind of worked out like that. And COVID made that a lot more difficult. But what was a saving grace, and I think is my saving grace at the time scale, kind of always looking on trying to be on the positive side of it, is technology. This that we are doing now. Every single week, we speak to each other as if we're in the same room, and we're not in the same room. I'm here in the former Inspiration Nation Towers. Joe's in the even former Inspiration Nation Towers. and Ryan is in the Palace of Griffibon, but we're all together. And this is the same thing with the kids. Video technology, video phones, online gaming together, stuff like that made it a lot easier to deal with, I think. Don't get me wrong, especially when the kids were younger, trying to keep their attention on the video screen was an absolute nightmare, but keeping their attention when they're in the same room as you is an absolute nightmare as well. And as we went on, we built, early days, I'd drive up there. I like driving for 10 hours. However, I'm not such a fan of, things like EasyJet, low cost airlines, planning ahead, booking early, made it financially viable to do it. Fell into a routine, got quite comfortable up there. I know my way around kind of the west coast of Scotland, I'd say, as well as know my way around here now as well. It becomes normal for the kids because they didn't know anything. They were 2 when it happened, so they don't really remember beforehand. So it's comfortable for them, and it's a pattern for them, and it's a routine. And it kind of just started to become a way of life. So in the first bit of coping with it, I decided, it wasn't right that because my roots are here, that my ex has to stay here when all the roots are up there. I don't think that was right to kind of kick off about, put a thing on. Everyone has their own unique situations and different perspectives. I'm not saying people should do it in the same way, but that's the approach I took. And then it was just living it was, how do I make the best out of the situation? What pre-planning can I do for the travel? Lots and lots of, logistical stuff comes into it. And I say where they are is a really nice place. We get weekends and weeks together that are really dedicated. They both like gaming, so we do online gaming. There's calls, we text all the time. So there's lots of ways to make it work, and that's my view. And above everything else is, are the kids happy? And as long as they are happy, because sometimes I'll miss them and I want to reach out, and it becomes, I suppose needy is the best thing for it. And sometimes the kids aren't available, but actually that means they're quite content and they're quite happy. I think it'd be worse if they were really missing me and reaching out the other way around. So that's that's my mindset, and that's my approach on it. And the last little bit to it, which is the extreme, if you like, is there was a plan a few years ago, which again COVID has kind of put pay to, that they were going to move out to the United States, which was an even more significant change. So, after X amount of years, I'd got into this routine with Scotland. It was comfortable. We got it working. It was all settled. And then actually they were going to move out to Texas. Which was, it was going to be even more logistically impossible. We come out with ways that it was going to work, but I'd be seeing them for longer periods of time, but less frequently. And we discussed it. We came up with a routine on how it was going to work. We kind of got going on the process a few times, and it had to start for various reasons. The latest being, I say, COVID just completely put the plans into long grass, might have put it off. But again, I kind of reasoned with myself a way that it could work and we could make it happen, spoke to the kids of how it'd be and everything. And, this, the cloud in it, if it was the reality, is spending 4, 5, 6 weeks out in the States somewhere probably quite nice isn't the worst thing in the world to do, even though it's not ideal, even though what I'd want is the kids to be with me every day. If that's not possible, how can I then make the best of that situation? That is, I lived that is my mindset that got me through it. And I, in terms of us inspiring people or kind of giving advice or mantras or anything like that, it is, and it's that I always think there's an Evan Carmichael cartoon where you've got 3 people walking in the rain, 2 really miserable looking and 1 who's just skipping along. And the thing being is that, your mindset in your situation is what does it. It's very similar to the "you always take the weather with you" conversation we had a few weeks ago. Again, check it out in the archives. But I think that this situation, if you like, is probably the hardest thing I've had to deal with. But I think with some resilience and some pragmatics and thinking about the other people involved is how I kind of have got myself through it, if you like, and got to where it is, a good situation. I think, it's as good of a situation as you can get in a situation, if that makes sense. And it's just making sure I put the effort in to make it work, which I do, constantly check myself on to try and make sure that I am doing that.
And I just want to say, Lee, thanks so much for sharing that, because I know that's a pretty personal story, that. So, and what I've taken from that is that it's just the way you looked at it. It was almost like quite practical. It's like, what can I do? It was like, what can I control? What can't I control type of thing around it. But of course, you had the relationship deal with, with your ex and stuff like that. So how did you, because you were like, I'm sure you felt quite emotional. What emotions did you feel, and how did you cope with those? Because it must have been a very emotional time. How did you cope with the emotions of the time? You know,
it was, and I think, and it's tough to really remember, and there might be, you know, family and friends and stuff who remember a bit more than I do, and it's just, you know, as time goes on, your memory has a way of both rose tinting things, and I think lessening the, or certainly my mind does, the bad things kind of get pushed to the back. So I think initially you get that initial, you know, it's a big change, what this is going to mean to me, etc., etc. But I think my recollection, which may be rose tinted, is I got through that cycle quite quickly. To the point where it was about, right, okay, this is how it's going to be. How do we make it work? And I think I got, you know, that's, and we've talked before over previous things. I think over time, I've taught myself to have quite a quick change cycle in my mind. And I think that was something that really helped me at the time to get to that point quite quickly.
It sounded like it was quite factual, like this is what it is. I'm just not going to make it worse than it is. I'm not going to make it better than it is. I'm just going to deal with what it is. And that's what it sounds like to me. That's what, you know, it sounds like.
Yeah, or I suppose not that I'm not going to make it worse or make it better, but I suppose that I can't force other people's actions or behaviors or lifestyle choices in a certain direction to make it better for me, I think is part of it. Particularly more recently with the thing about America and stuff like that, is it's, you know, and I say it like I had some decision-making thing in the process, you know, everyone's got their own lives, but I wanted to be as cooperative as possible because I think that was the right thing to do.
And I suppose, you know, if you weren't cooperative, then it could have been a totally different thing, couldn't it? That's what I'm thinking. I'm just.
Oh yeah, and I don't think that helps anyone whatsoever.
Emotion and ego. It seems like you really dealt with the emotion and ego, because there could be, well, I think I'm right, and it didn't feel like this. You know, it felt like you really practically dealt with it, which is like that whole skipping Evan Carmichael, you know, cartoon you talked about.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that there weren't conversations where it's like, you know, why are you doing this or blah, or you know, arguments back and forth. I'm saying that because I don't remember, but what I do remember is by the time they were going, I was in a place of, right, let's make this work.
So if someone's going through this similar sort of thing, you know, if someone's, you know, what would be your biggest, you know, and I suppose the biggest piece of objectivity you'd give somebody going through something similar? Would you say?
I think, and it's something that I think I try and tell myself a lot of the time when there's stressful situations going on. It's a moment in time thing. Look at where you'd be in a year or 2 years or 3 years. This will sound really corny, but I'm going to tell you anyway. You know, when you're watching a movie or a TV show or something, and you get those transitions where something really dramatic happens and it's really awful, and then it cuts to a year later, and everyone's past the initial drama, they've readjusted, they coped, and there's a new way of whatever it is, whether it's big or small. And that's the same to me. Is if I was to step back and look at it, there was that initial, oh my God, how's it going to work? And then a year later making it work, and another year later where it's more settled, and it's kind of that, you know, what is really bad now. We and the last few years have shown it, we have such an amazing capability as individuals and as a society to adapt. And I think it is that knowledge that, you know, it is stressful now, but you will get through it and things will be better. And what seems like the end of the world now will not be the end of the world in a year's time.
And that's the thing.
We almost had the end of the world and we're all still here.
Yeah, and I think that's the hardest thing when you're in an emotional place where you might have been as well, to imagine that and stay calm and quite, you know, recognizing that, because that can feel like the end of the world, right? That can feel like the end of the world. So
yeah,
kudos to you. Ryan, do you want to add anything into that and ask Lee a question around those moments?
Is there not a part of you that how do you battle the selfishness of wanting to fight the decision? I'm just not quite sure that if I were in your shoes, and you obviously you mentioned that you talk about it with a rose tint to it, but knowing how I am, I definitely wouldn't be pleased. And I don't even have kids, so I don't even know where I'd begin with that. But I'd find it hard to not make it about me, but also making it about me. I'd be like, well, how am I supposed to?
And it was probably an
job?
early bit where I might have done that, and there might have been an instinctive reaction. But again, I think that we got through that bit quite quickly, and I think it is. And it's stupid to say, and it was a while ago, and it's not much different where you are now, but possibly an age thing or something like that, where it's just because it's, for me, it's not dealing with the selfishness, it's dealing with the what ifs. If it was different, then this would be okay. And I don't, again, just how my mind works, I don't deal in what ifs. I don't kind of dwell on, oh, this happened, but what, it could have been worse if this happened, or it would be better if this happened, or if I never did this, then I wouldn't have got here. I'm quite pragmatic by nature, so I kind of just deal with what's in front of me rather than permutations. And again, I will try, and this is what I said about the best bit, Joe, is I will always try and make situations the best they can be. I like to say that I will always make lemonade out of my lemons, but I won't kind of then spend a while being like, oh yeah, but if that didn't happen, this would be a better thing for me. It's more just, how can I make the best out of this? It's really hard to translate, but it's a mindset thing more than anything else, I think. And it's always evolving. Over the last 2 years, I'm sure the way I talk about things on here has changed. And it's just being conscious of that kind of, making the best, not dwelling too much, not, the end of each day, I don't want to be full of stress. And I think a lot of that can be self-put on you if you hold on to too many things. And again, it doesn't mean I'm perfect at it whatsoever. You both off the air have heard many of my rants about various things. So we all have those things, but I like to think I'm more calm and level-headedly more of the time than I'm crazy rantingly.
Yeah, I think it's difficult for me to understand because I'm not at that point in my life where either I have had kids or have an ex that I had kids with. So, so it's hard for me to empathize, I guess, because I've just never been in that position.
Yeah, I suppose that, completely sure on the other foot, if I'd have really put my foot down and said, right, no, you have to stay here, what happens if I decided to go somewhere else and they've stayed where it is? Because there's all of those considerations involved in the situation. I think that, again, just looking at that broader picture piece, and it's getting through that initial shock of this is a big change, because we all go through that change cycle to where it's, the whole, you reject it, you fight it, you accept it, you then become practical about it and you move forward. And it's just getting through that cycle as quickly as possible, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. And it's like some of us find that it's quite challenging.
It's never, and it hits different ways all the time.
Yeah, and it's just the way you described it, it's just the way you dealt with it is really, really good. And I'm not sure, like Ryan said, I'm not sure I would have dealt with it as good. I think the way you deal with your emotions is really, 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 really good. I think it's a real tough challenge to have gone through there. So it's a challenge, right?
Indeed. Conscious I've eaten up a lot of time. I'm going to do my cheap plug and we move on to Ryan. So fans of the show, head over inspirationnation.org.uk if you want to support what we do. Coaching service, access to all of our content, Inspiration Nation shop, quick mug shot if Ryan's mug isn't in a dishwasher, Inspiration Nation mugs, face mask, hoodies. I'm wearing one. Joe's got a t-shirt on. It's all over at inspirationnation.org.uk. Show your love for what we are doing. Right. Grifster, constant, we've got a countdown timer on.
We might extend into next episode if we do have to. We will do it. So Ryan, just take
to be continued.
That would be Lee getting away with his week again, though.
True story.
We'd have to extend his week, wouldn't we?
I think it's hard for me in this type of scenario because I don't think I've beaten or am over or am past what I feel is my biggest, are we calling it challenge or setback or whatever phrase you want to use?
Hardest moment.
There you go.
I think for me, and I have kind of referenced this before, I just don't care about a lot of things. That is the most layman way I can put it, is that I just don't care about a lot of things. So again, I've referenced this previously, but I've had money problems in the past, puts me in a bit of a category not one that I'm necessarily sure I fit in. But when I was a young adult, I wasn't great with money. Got a lot of payday loans because I was like, oh, look at this, I can get loads of credit. Oh, this is amazing. I don't ever have to pay this back. Obviously, incredibly wrong. And I have literally nothing to show for it. But I just didn't care. Didn't care about paying it back. Didn't care about the situation I was in. I was like, it is what it is. That's fine. Let's just get on with it. I've also referenced, as another example, wanting to lose some weight and wanting to do a bit of work around myself on that. And I've mentioned this extensively before, that I go through maybe a week or two's motivation to do it, and then I simply just don't care again. And that still is the case. Like, I bought the exercise bike that I've mentioned before. I started eating cleaner, and to be fair to myself, I still eat relatively clean. I still do okay with that, but I definitely don't use the bike anymore. I may have used it 3 or 4 times. And I just don't care that I wasted that money, or that I'm not really doing anything about it. Like, I could die by the time I'm 45. Do not care. And I think that is something that that's what I feel is my biggest challenge, is that I haven't quite managed to beat, or my biggest setback is I haven't quite managed to beat that. The fact that I just don't care. And maybe it's because I don't have anything to make me care. Like, a lot of people around my age are maybe getting married. Maybe they have kids. Maybe they have much more serious responsibilities than I do, that gives them not a purpose, because I don't feel like I'm without purpose, but we'll use that phrase. It kind of gives them a purpose to get up and do stuff. I get up and get out of bed simply because I like my job and I want to progress. If of the minimal things I do care about, my job is 1, for some weird reason. 2 is anything social that I like doing, so gaming or playing pool or snooker or whatever. But I also want to give that up because I just don't care anymore. And it's very weird. I care about very little, and that there's a big part of me that worries, like, that I should really be caring about this, but I don't know, A, why I don't care, and B, how I can fix that. I don't even know how I go about fixing that. So, long story short, in a 3-minute kind of ramble, that's where I'm at.
I think that would be a good thing to, like, an imaginary 12 months from now, because it won't be dead on, but I think that might be a good thing to track and see how and not saying that that's something that will naturally progress or you even need to change it, but it'll just be good to see how your perspective changes over time.
I would have had this perspective a year ago, and I would have had it 2 years ago. That's how I feel. I don't feel like that perspective's changed since.
Yeah.
Well, I just don't think I've ever been in a position where I've had to care about anything. I don't. But there comes times, as I've said before, where I have maybe a 2-week to maximum 3 months where I'm like, I'm dedicated to wanting to sort this situation out. And in that time, thankfully, I've set up ways that I can kind of salvage some of my financial state. And in that time, I started eating a bit cleaner, which generally I stick to, as I say. Otherwise, I'd have nothing. So, yeah, I don't know. Honestly, it's difficult for me to give you definitive answers when I just don't really know.
So
go on.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, a lot of people say that they're kind of markers for, like, depression in a sense. And Joe, you'll know more about this than I will, I expect. But in a way that I just don't care about things, I'm quite numb to things. That's quite a heavy trait to maybe a depressive state, but I'm not. I'm not. I don't know. I know this isn't a marker to say that I'm not, but I laugh at life. I joke with people. You two know me. I'm not a down person. Like, I'm generally an upbeat type person, and that's the person I've always been. And it isn't a facade. I don't go away and sit in a dark corner by myself, as you would stereotypically think somebody like that would, or anything like that at all. But they're the markers. How I feel, and in that presence is a strong marker, I'm told, as to being in a depressive state. But I'm not. This is just who I am. I just don't care about much. It's weird. It is weird.
You do care about your job, though, and that's something I did notice. That you do what happens in your work, don't you?
Yeah, but I think that's more because what's more important to me is how I'm seen and how I'm valued and how I'm viewed. Maybe it's I don't know. Yeah. That's probably that. If I put my finger on it, that'd be what it is that the well done, or the pat on the backs, or the more responsibilities, or the working hard and the recognition and everything that comes out of doing a good job at something you're really good at, that feeds, if you like, my ego more than it means that I don't care about it. Don't get me wrong, I don't do my job for an ego boost, but that in a way, in a manner of describing it, those kind of things. I do
think, and I think there's been little bits that change over the years, and not saying that there'll be a monumental shift, but I think it might be a good, as all of our mindsets are changing, to track a little bit and see how you feel and see how you reflect back on yourself.
I just feel like I should care about things. Like I feel like loads of people say to me, look, don't get me wrong, I'm pretty overweight, and they're like, well, don't you care? No, I really don't care. I would care if I went out and somebody was like, oh, you're fucking, oh sorry, I swore, you're well fat or whatever. that would tick me off, but it wouldn't make me do anything about it. I don't care. Like, okay, cool, thanks for your opinion, see you later. Like, honestly, it really doesn't bother me, but I feel like it really should, because I'm only damaging myself by not doing anything about it. So
I think, and I don't want to do the continuation thing, and it might not be for next week. We might save it for Ryan's round on the conversation, that this is worthy of a bit of follow-up if you're up for it, Ryan. Sure. It's good, completely value your opinion and your view and stuff. And I think there's a lot of, there's the side of not stressing about things other people would. And there's just, you've got that consciousness that you should, which I don't think you always did as well. And I think that would be good for a bit of follow-up. This has been an emotional one, Joe, an emotional subject. Appreciate you bringing it up, making us be real on the show. We hope people out there, it's good. It's made you think about your own situations, what you can do about things. Again, at Listen to IN, Listen TOIN. Joe is he is Jose Noya, InspirationNation. Stick it into any search engine, and just whatever platform you're on, leave us a review, tell friends and family. There's a lot of new listeners we're seeing out there, going back through the archive, trawling through the episodes. If you like what you're hearing, tell people about it. Seek us out on social media, send us a message, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like. We appreciate all the feedback, and I'm going to have to count us down now, guys. Getting too excited there. 3, 2, 1. InspirationNation.
Catch you guys later.
So guys, I want you to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video. I want you to put it in the description below and hashtag it with InspirationNation, because it's important that you take something away and work on it so you can get to your next level. Now, so you can catch all our other Inspiration Nation podcast episodes right over here, so go check them out. Also, don't forget to subscribe, because that will tell you when your next video goes live by you hitting that amazing bell. So until next time, it's Inspiration Nation, and I'll see you right over there.